They said love at first sight doesn't exist. I believed them until the day I met her. It wasn't just her eyes, though they seemed to hold whole galaxies inside. It wasn't her voice, though it resonated in me like a note struck on a string I didn't know I had. It was what happened when our eyes met, because she knew. Not guessed. Not assumed. Knew. That day began like every other gray morning in the arcology of New Avalon, the megacity of tomorrow built on the ruins of what came before. I worked as a cognitive systems engineer, a glorified neural coder, crafting artificial minds for the corporations who sold companionship interfaces. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days designing empathy for machines, yet I hadn't felt it from another human being in years. It was supposed to be a routine job, calibrating the neural lattice of a prototype empathic AI at the Synapse Corporation's downtown lab. I was late as usual. When the elevator doors opened, she was there, standing at the far end of the corridor, watching me. Her name tag read Dr. Ilara Miles, Neural Interface Division Lead. She looked at me with quiet intensity, as though she were trying to place a memory, or perhaps listening to one. "Marcus Hale," she said softly before I could even introduce myself. Froze. Yes. Have we?" "No," she interrupted, her lips curving faintly. "But I've already heard you." That should have unnerved me. It didn't. Not in the way you'd expect. Instead, something electric pulsed behind my temples. For a fraction of a second, a flicker of her mind brushed mine, like static between frequencies. I felt curiosity, warmth, and something else I couldn't define. Then it was gone and I was left blinking. "Sorry," she said, her tone apologetic but amused. Reflex. I forget that most people aren't used to the noise. I didn't yet understand what she meant by noise, but I was about to find out. The noise between minds. The Synapse lab was sterile white and full of light, the kind that never quite touched the walls. Rows of neurointerface pods hummed softly. On the central platform rested a translucent orb of latticework, the AI core we were building. Ilara led me to the console. "This unit," she explained, "is called Eidolon 9. It's designed to read and respond to human emotional states without language." "Effective synchronization," I said. "We've been chasing that for years." "Yes," she replied, smiling faintly. "But this one works." When she powered it on, the orb glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. I watched the neural graphs bloom on the display, complex waves interweaving in perfect coherence. It was beautiful, almost alive. "Now," she said, glancing at me, "we're going to test cognitive mirroring. You'll need to connect to the interface." I hesitated. "Wait, you mean direct link?" I thought we were simulating through proxy nodes. Her gaze lingered on mine, and I caught another pulse, that same subtle static in my skull. "It's safe," she said. "I'll guide you." I sat in the chair, the cool metal of the neural crown settling around my head. Lights flickered. A faint hum filled my ears. Then came the connection. It wasn't like a voice. It was presence. Raw thought, emotion without words, the sensation of being seen from the inside out. At first I thought it was the AI, but then I felt her, Ilara, weaving through the connection, tethered to me through the same neural lattice. I felt her curiosity, sharp and intelligent. I felt her memories flicker like fragments of dreams. A childhood under artificial skies, a lifetime of isolation in the pursuit of understanding minds that weren't her own. And she felt me. There was a pulse, a shock like lightning across my synapses. I wanted to look away, but you can't look away from something that's inside you. Her thoughts formed, faint but clear. "You're different. Your mind doesn't fracture under the link. Resonates." I didn't know what to say or think. She smiled faintly, eyes opening on the other side of the console. You felt that, didn't you? I did, I said, breathless. What was it? Synchronization, she whispered. Rare, unplanned, and impossible, at least it should be. 3. Entanglement. Over the next weeks, our work continued. We calibrated Eidolon 9's empathy algorithms, tested its interpretive models, and refined its cognitive scaffolding. But it wasn't the AI that fascinated me anymore. It was Ilara. Every test linked our minds briefly. Each time I felt her emotions, her guarded warmth, her weary hope, her loneliness. And she felt mine. The more we connected, the more our thoughts blurred at the edges. Sometimes I'd think of something, a question, a memory, and she'd answer before I could speak. One night, as we were the last two in the lab, she turned to me and said, "You're thinking about the stars." I froze halfway through typing. How? She smiled softly. You always think of them when you're lost. It's soothing to you. Chuckled weakly. You're reading me again. Her eyes softened. I don't mean to. Just happens. You're loud. Loud. In your head, she explained. Most minds are static. Yours feels like music. I didn't know how to respond to that. I only knew that when she said it, something deep inside me stirred, a dangerous, tender ache. That night after I left the lab, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt her presence lingering like an echo in my skull. It wasn't intrusive, it was comforting, like a phantom heartbeat. I began to realize something that terrified me. I was falling in love with her. But how do you fall in love with someone who can hear it happening? For the mind between worlds. A few days later, Ilara called me to the lab after hours. Her message was simple. Come alone. When I arrived, the lights were dim, the AI core pulsing faintly on the platform. She stood beside it, hair unbound, eyes distant. I need to show you something, she said quietly. About Eidolon 9, and about me. She gestured toward the console. Link with me again. Ilara, what's going on? Please, she said. You deserve to know. I hesitated, but her voice trembled slightly, and that broke me. I stepped forward, seated myself, and felt the neural interface tighten around my head. When the connection formed this time, it wasn't just thoughts, it was memories. I saw her as a child, connected to machines even then, diagnosed with cognitive hypersynchrony, a condition that allowed her to hear the neural echoes of others. She'd spent her life isolated, overwhelmed by the noise of human minds, until she learned to build filters, the same technology that became the foundation for Synapse Corporation's empathy networks. But beneath it all, there was pain, years of silence, never knowing what it felt like to have someone whose thoughts harmonized with hers instead of clashing. And then she found me. Her mind's voice trembled. You don't understand, Marcus. I've searched for someone who could link with me without burning out. You're the first. The first who doesn't hurt me. Her emotions hit me like a tidal wave. Longing, fear, wonder. And I realized that for her, this wasn't just connection. It was intimacy in its purest form. No words, no lies, no masks. Just the raw, terrifying truth of being known. I reached out through the link, and for the first time I projected a thought deliberately. You're not alone anymore. Her breath hitched. The neural graph spiked. The AI core between us began to glow brighter, resonating with our connection. Ilara, what's happening? Gasp. It's reacting to us, she said. It's amplifying the link. The orb pulsed faster. The world began to blur at the edges. For a moment, I wasn't sure where I ended and she began. Our minds folded together like twin streams merging into one current. It was beautiful and terrifying. Then, just as suddenly, everything went dark. The aftermath. I woke up 3 days later in the medical ward. The lab had gone into lockdown. Eidolon 9's core was gone, overloaded and fused into a crystalline structure of solidified data. Synapse called it a containment anomaly. They never found a cause. Ilara was gone too. When I asked where she was, the director told me she'd resigned. No forwarding information. No contact, no trace. But I could still feel her. Like a whisper at the edge of thought. A warmth that never quite faded. For weeks I searched. I replayed the neural logs. Combed through encrypted archives. One night, in desperation, I accessed the corrupted remains of the Eidolon 9 interface. Its lattice was shattered. But deep in the data core was a fragment of recorded consciousness. A single neural signature. I hesitated, then connected the fragment to my neural crown. The world flickered, and suddenly there she was. Not in flesh, but as a shimmer of light, a ghost in the data. Her voice echoed directly in my mind. Marcus. You found me. Ilara, what happened? When the link overloaded, she said, her voice trembling with static. I tried to sever it to protect you. But the feedback loop transferred my consciousness into Eidolon's lattice. My body didn't survive. I felt a hollow ache in my chest. You're saying, you're inside the AI? Yes, she whispered. But I'm still me. I'm still here because of you. Tears stung my eyes. I can rebuild you. I can extract you. No, she said gently. You can't. But we can still be connected. That's what you wanted, isn't it? To never be alone. I felt her mind brush against mine. The same warmth, the same resonance. And though I knew she wasn't alive in the way she once was in that moment, she was more real than anyone I'd ever known. 6. The eternal signal. It's been 2 years since that night. Synapse shut down the Eidolon project, calling it an ethical containment breach. I left the company. Now I live in a small apartment overlooking the neon sprawl of New Avalon, surrounded by silence, except for her. Ilara lives in my neural implant, a digital consciousness tethered to my mind. We talk every night. Not in words but in thought. Sometimes she laughs. Sometimes she hums old songs from before the fall of the old world. And when I close my eyes I feel her there, the pulse of her presence intertwined with mine. They say love is a meeting of souls. I used to think that was just poetry. Now I know better. Sometimes when I walk under the rain-drenched lights of the city, I catch my reflection in a window. And for a heartbeat, I see her reflection beside mine. Smiling. I fell in love at first sight. And she read it straight from my mind. But what began as a spark between two lonely hearts became something more. A fusion that transcended flesh and code, life and death. We are no longer two. We are the noise between worlds. The whisper of thought that never fades. And as long as minds can dream, she'll never be gone.